A desperate daughter's choice, Natalie Brooks sat in the sterile waiting room of Memorial Hospital, her hands trembling as she clutched the worn sketchbook in her lap. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows across her tired face. At 24, she had already learned that life rarely offered second chances. But today, she was praying for exactly that. Her father, Thomas Brooks, lay in the intensive care unit, his body ravaged by a rare neurological disease that was slowly stealing away his ability to move, to speak, to simply exist. The experimental treatment Dr. Williams had mentioned last month was their only hope. But the cost was astronomical. $50,000 up front, then $20,000 per month for at least 6 months. Natalie had sold everything she owned, her art supplies, her laptop, even her mother's wedding ring, but she had barely scraped together $8,000. It was not nearly enough. She looked down at her sketchbook, filled with half-finished drawings and abandoned ideas. Her art degree had promised a bright future, but reality had delivered restaurant shifts and mounting debt instead. Now, even those simple dreams felt impossibly far away. An unexpected proposition. The sharp click of heels on linoleum made Natalie look up. Her Aunt Barbara strode toward her, designer handbag swinging from her arm, her perfectly styled hair not moving despite her brisk pace. Barbara had always been the successful one in the family, marrying well, living in the right neighborhood, attending the right social events. She had barely spoken to Natalie's father in years, some old family grudge that nobody talked about anymore. "Natalie, dear," Barbara said, her voice dripping with false sweetness as she sat down beside her. "I heard about your father's condition. Such a terrible thing." Natalie tensed, immediately suspicious. Barbara never did anything without a motive. "What do you want?" Barbara's smile sharpened. Always so direct. "I suppose that is refreshing. The truth is, I have a solution to your problem. Your father's treatment will be fully funded, starting immediately. All medical expenses covered for as long as he needs care." Natalie's heart leaped, then plummeted just as quickly. "What's the catch? You are going to marry Jonathan Pierce?" The name meant nothing to Natalie. She shook her head, confused. "Who is Jonathan Pierce? And why would he want to marry me?" Barbara pulled out her phone, showing Natalie a photo of a man in his early 30s. He was handsome in a severe way, with dark hair, sharp features, and intense eyes that seemed to look right through the camera. But what caught Natalie's attention was the sleek wheelchair he sat in, his hands resting on the armrests with controlled precision. "Jonathan Pierce is the CEO of Pierce Technologies," Barbara explained. "He was in an accident 2 years ago that left him paralyzed from the waist down. His family needs him to marry to maintain certain business arrangements and inheritance clauses. You need money for your father." "It is a simple transaction." Natalie's stomach churned. "You want me to marry a complete stranger for money? That is insane." "Is it?" Barbara's eyes grew cold. "Your father has maybe 3 months without treatment. With it, he could live for years. I am offering you a way to save him. All you have to do is sign some papers and play the role of devoted wife for a while. Jonathan is not looking for love, Natalie. He is looking for convenience. You will have your own room, your own life. Just show up for the occasional public appearance." Natalie wanted to say no, wanted to throw the offer back in Barbara's face. But the image of her father, weak and fading in that hospital bed, kept flashing through her mind. How could she condemn him to death because of her pride? "I need to think about it," she whispered. Barbara stood, smoothing her skirt. "You have until tomorrow morning. After that, the offer expires. I will be in touch." She walked away, leaving Natalie alone with the impossible choice. The first meeting twint. 4 hours later, Natalie found herself standing outside the massive iron gates of the Pierce estate, a small suitcase at her feet. She had signed the papers that morning, her hand shaking so badly she could barely hold the pen. Barbara had smiled triumphantly, promising that the first payment for her father's treatment would be processed immediately. Dr. Williams had called an hour later, confirming that an anonymous donor had paid for 6 months of care up front. The gates swung open silently, and Natalie walked up the long driveway, her heart pounding. The mansion was even more intimidating up close. All glass and steel and modern angles that seemed designed to keep people at a distance. A woman in her late 20s met her at the front door, her dark hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, her expression guarded. "You must be Natalie," the woman said, not offering her hand. "I am Rachel Kim, Jonathan's physical therapist. I have been with him since the accident." There was something territorial in Rachel's tone, a warning hidden beneath the polite words. Natalie managed a small smile. "Nice to meet you." Rachel's eyes swept over Natalie's worn jeans and simple blouse, her disapproval obvious. "Jonathan is in his study. I will take you to him. But first, you should understand something. Jonathan has been through hell these past 2 years. He does not need anyone making things harder for him. Whatever arrangement you have with his family, remember that he is a human being, not a paycheck." The words stung, but Natalie lifted her chin. "I understand." Rachel led her through the mansion, their footsteps echoing on the marble floors. Expensive art hung on the walls, but the place felt cold, empty, like a museum rather than a home. They stopped at a heavy wooden door, and Rachel knocked twice before pushing it open. Meeting Jonathan, the study was dimly lit, the curtains drawn against the afternoon sun. Jonathan Pierce sat behind a massive desk, his wheelchair positioned precisely in the center. He looked up as they entered, and Natalie felt the full force of his gaze. In person, he was even more striking than his photo, but it was his eyes that held her. They were the color of storm clouds, intelligent and intense, but also deeply guarded. There was pain there, carefully hidden but unmistakable. "Mr. Pierce." "This is Natalie Brooks," Rachel said, her voice softening slightly when she spoke to him. Jonathan studied Natalie for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "You can call me Jonathan. We are going to be married, after all." His voice was deep, edged with something that might have been bitterness. "Did my Aunt Barbara explain the terms?" Natalie nodded, finding her voice. She said, "It is a business arrangement. That you need a wife for legal reasons, and you need money for your father's medical care." That was not a question. Jonathan leaned back in his wheelchair, his hands gripping the armrests. "Let me be clear, Natalie. I am not looking for a real marriage. You will have your own room, your own space. We will appear together when necessary for family events and business functions. Beyond that, we live separate lives. Is that understood?" The coldness in his voice made Natalie flinch, but she forced herself to meet his gaze. "Understood. Good." He turned his attention to some papers on his desk, effectively dismissing her. "Rachel will show you to your room. We will have dinner at 7. Please be punctual." Rachel touched Natalie's arm, guiding her out of the study. As the door closed behind them, Natalie felt tears prick her eyes. What had she gotten herself into? This man was not just physically broken. There was something deeper, something wounded in him that went beyond the wheelchair. "Do not take it personally," Rachel said quietly, as they walked down another long hallway. "Jonathan has not been the same since the accident. He pushes everyone away." "What happened to him?" Natalie asked. Rachel's expression closed off. "That is not my story to tell. He will share it if he wants to, or he will not. Either way, remember what I said? He has been hurt enough." First night in a gilded cage, Natalie's room was beautiful, but impersonal, like a luxury hotel suite. She unpacked her few belongings, feeling out of place among the expensive furniture and silk curtains. Through the window, she could see the estate's sprawling grounds, perfectly manicured gardens that probably cost more to maintain than most people's yearly salary. She pulled out her phone and called the hospital. The nurse confirmed that her father was being transferred to a private room that evening and that Dr. Williams would begin the experimental treatment in the morning. At least something good was coming from this nightmare. At 7 o'clock sharp, Natalie made her way to the dining room. The table was set for 2, crystal glasses catching the light from an elaborate chandelier. Jonathan was already there, his wheelchair positioned at the head of the table. He had changed into a dark sweater that emphasized his broad shoulders. Despite everything, Natalie could not help noticing that he was an incredibly handsome man. "Sit," he said. Gesturing to the chair on his right, a silent staff member served them dinner. Some kind of gourmet meal that Natalie barely tasted. The silence was suffocating. Finally, she could not take it anymore. "Can I ask you something?" she said. Jonathan looked up from his plate, one eyebrow raised. That depends on the question. Why did you agree to this? You could have married anyone. Why me? For a moment something flickered across his face, too quick for her to read. Because you need something from me, and I need something from you. Clean transactions are easier than messy emotions. No expectations means no disappointments. That sounds lonely, Natalie said softly. His jaw tightened. It is practical. Loneliness is just another feeling to manage. They finished the meal in silence, but Natalie could not shake the sadness that had settled over her. This man had built walls so high around himself that he could not even see the prison he had created. As she returned to her room that night, she wondered if 6 months in this cold, beautiful house would change anything. No. Or if they would both just become more isolated, two strangers sharing a name but nothing else. Unexpected tenderness the first. Week at the Pierce estate passed in a blur of awkward silences and carefully maintained distance. Natalie spent her days exploring the mansion's library, sketching in the gardens, and visiting her father at the hospital. The experimental treatment was working better than anyone had hoped. Thomas Brooks was already showing signs of improvement, his speech clearer, his movements less labored. Each time Natalie saw the hope returning to his eyes, she reminded herself why she had made this choice. Jonathan remained distant, speaking to her only when necessary. They shared meals in silence, attended one stiff family dinner where his relatives looked at her with barely concealed curiosity, and otherwise lived as strangers under the same roof. Rachel was always hovering, her protectiveness of Jonathan becoming more obvious with each passing day. She watched Natalie like a hawk, ready to swoop in at any perceived threat. On the 8th morning, everything changed. Natalie was walking past Jonathan's private gym when she heard a crash followed by a muffled curse. Without thinking, she pushed open the door and found Jonathan on the floor beside his wheelchair, his face twisted in pain and frustration. He had clearly been attempting some kind of exercise and lost his balance. "Get out," he growled, not looking at her. Instead, Natalie hurried forward, kneeling beside him.
"Let me help you," I said. "Get out."
His voice was sharp, but she could hear the humiliation beneath the anger. "And I am choosing to ignore that," Natalie said firmly. She positioned herself beside him, remembering techniques she had learned years ago when volunteering at a rehabilitation center. "Put your arm around my shoulders. On 3, we will lift together. 1, 2, 3. With her support, Jonathan managed to get back into his wheelchair. He was breathing hard, his jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscle jumping. For a moment, she thought he might yell at her again. But instead, he just stared at his useless legs with such raw hatred that it made her chest ache. "This is who I am now," he said quietly, bitterly, broken, helpless, unable to do the simplest things without falling on my face. Natalie sat down on the exercise mat, looking up at him. "You're not broken. You are healing." "There is a difference." "Healing?" he laughed, a harsh sound. "I have been in this chair for 2 years, Natalie. The doctors say I will never walk again. My spinal cord was damaged beyond repair. This is not healing. This is learning to accept defeat." She reached out slowly, carefully, and placed her hand on his knee. He flinched, but did not pull away. "The body is not the only thing that needs healing," she said softly. "Sometimes the heart and mind need even more time." Jonathan looked down at her hand on his knee, something unreadable crossing his face. "You should not be kind to me. This marriage is a transaction, remember? Kindness complicates things." "Maybe things should be complicated," Natalie replied. "Maybe simple transactions are what keep us lonely." Before he could respond, Rachel burst through the door, her eyes widening when she saw them. "What happened, Jonathan? Are you hurt?" "I am fine," he said, his walls slamming back into place. "Just a minor fall. Natalie was helping me back into the chair." Rachel's eyes narrowed at Natalie. "I am his physical therapist. That is my job, not yours." "She was just being helpful," Jonathan said, an edge to his voice. "Let it go, Rachel." Rachel's face flushed, but she nodded stiffly. "Of course, I will leave you to rest." She left, but not before shooting Natalie a look of pure resentment. Building trust after that morning, something shifted between Natalie and Jonathan. He still maintained his distance, but there were cracks in his armor now. She started spending time in his study while he worked, sketching quietly in the corner. At first, he ignored her presence, but gradually he began asking about her drawings, showing genuine interest in her art. One evening, as rain drummed against the windows, Jonathan surprised her by rolling over to where she sat curled in an armchair. "Can I see what you were working on?" he asked. Natalie hesitated, then turned her sketchbook around. She had been drawing him, capturing the intensity in his eyes as he focused on his computer screen. The strong line of his jaw, the way his hands moved with such controlled precision across the keyboard. Jonathan stared at the drawing for a long moment. "Is this how you see me?" "Yes," she said simply. "I see someone who refuses to give up, even when everything tells him he should. Someone who is stronger than he realizes." He looked up at her, and for the first time she saw his careful mask slip completely. There was vulnerability there, a desperate hunger for connection that he had been denying for so long. "You barely know me." "Then tell me about yourself," Natalie said. "Tell me what happened. Tell me why you are so determined to push everyone away." Jonathan was quiet for so long that she thought he would not answer. Then slowly, he began to speak. "The accident was not an accident. My business partner, a man I trusted like a brother, sabotaged the brakes on my car. We had disagreed about the direction of the company. He wanted to cut corners, to prioritize profits over ethics. I refused, so he tried to kill me." Natalie's hand flew to her mouth. "Jonathan, that is horrible." "The crash should have killed me," he continued, his voice flat but his eyes blazing. "Instead, it left me like this. Unable to walk, unable to run the company the way I wanted. My partner is in prison now, but the damage was done. I lost my mobility, my independence, my ability to trust anyone." "Not anyone," Natalie said softly. "You trust Rachel." His expression darkened. "Rachel was my physical therapist in the hospital. She has been loyal, yes, but even that comes with complications I am not ready to address." Before Natalie could ask what he meant, Jonathan changed the subject. Over the next hour, they talked about everything from childhood memories to favorite books to dreams they had abandoned. With each shared story, Natalie felt herself drawn deeper into his world, seeing past the cold exterior to the wounded, brilliant man beneath. The setup 2 weeks into their arrangement, Natalie woke to a commotion in the hallway. She threw on a robe and opened her door to find Rachel standing outside her room, holding a delicate diamond bracelet. "Looking for this?" Rachel said loudly, her voice carrying down the hall. "I found it hidden in your drawer when I was putting away laundry." Natalie's stomach dropped. "That is not mine. I've never seen that before." "Really?" Rachel's smile was cruel. "Because this bracelet belongs to Jonathan's late mother. It is worth over $50,000. And you just happen to have it hidden in your room?" Other staff members had gathered, drawn by the noise. Natalie felt panic rising in her chest. "I did not take it. Someone must have put it there. Who would do that?" Rachel asked innocently. "Unless you are suggesting that I planted it to frame you. Why would I do such a thing?" Jonathan's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "That is exactly what you did, Rachel." Everyone turned to see Jonathan wheeling down the hallway, his expression thunderous. He stopped in front of Rachel, his eyes cold. "I had security cameras installed in the hallways last week. Silent ones that you did not know about. Would you like me to pull up the footage of you entering Natalie's room this morning and placing that bracelet in her drawer?" Rachel's face went white. "Jonathan, I can explain." "Explain what?" "That you were so threatened by my wife that you would try to frame her as a thief? That you would steal my mother's jewelry and use it to hurt someone who has done nothing to you?" "Your wife?" Rachel's voice rose hysterically. "She is not your wife. Not really. This is just some arrangement your family forced on you. I have been with you for 2 years, Jonathan. I have cared for you, supported you, helped you through the darkest times, and you replaced me with her. Some poor artist who only married you for money? That is enough," Jonathan said sharply. "You are fired, Rachel. Pack your things and leave today." Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "You cannot mean that. Jonathan, please, I love you. I have always loved you, and I have always been clear that I did not return those feelings, Jonathan said, his voice gentler, but still firm. I valued you as a therapist and friend, Rachel, but this has crossed every line. You need to go. Rachel looked at Natalie with pure hatred. You will regret this, both of you. She dropped the bracelet on the floor and stormed away. Confession in the dark that night, unable to sleep after the confrontation, Natalie wandered through the mansion. She found herself drawn to Jonathan's study, where soft light spilled from beneath the door. She knocked softly. Come in, his voice called. Jonathan sat by the window, looking out at the moonlit gardens. He turned his chair as she entered. Cannot sleep either. Too much drama for one day, Natalie said, trying to smile. Thank you for defending me, for believing me. I knew Rachel. Planted that bracelet the moment I saw it, Jonathan said. She has been growing more possessive, more desperate. I should have addressed it sooner. I am sorry you were caught in the middle of her obsession. Natalie moved closer, sitting on the window seat beside him. She said she loves you. She loves the idea of me, Jonathan corrected. Or perhaps she loves the challenge of fixing someone broken. Either way, it was not real. Not like his jaw tightening. Not like what? Natalie asked softly. Jonathan turned to face her fully, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. Not like what I am starting to feel for you. The confession hung in the air between them, fragile and powerful. Natalie's heart hammered against her ribs. Jonathan, you do not have to say anything, he said quickly. I know this was supposed to be a simple arrangement. But these past few weeks, watching you, talking to you, seeing how you care for your father, and how you refuse to see me as broken, it has changed something in me. You make me want to believe in possibilities I thought were dead. Natalie reached out, taking his hand. His fingers closed around hers, strong and warm. I feel it too, she whispered. I did not expect to, but I do. You are not what I thought you would be. You are so much more. Jonathan pulled her closer, his free hand coming up to cup her cheek. I need to tell you something about your father's treatment. I know, Natalie said. I figured it out. Barbara did not pay for anything, did she? It was you. It has always been you. He nodded slowly. I saw your father's case in a medical journal. The article mentioned his daughter selling her possessions to try to afford treatment. It's something about your determination, your refusal to give up, spoke to me. I contacted Barbara and proposed this arrangement. The marriage was real for legal reasons, but I wanted it to be you specifically. Why? Natalie asked, tears filling her eyes. Because I saw myself in you, Jonathan said. Someone fighting against impossible odds, refusing to accept defeat. I thought if I could help your father, if I could give you hope, maybe I could remember what that felt like. Maybe I could find my own way back to living instead of just existing. Natalie felt a tear slip down her cheek. You saved my father's life, and you are saving mine, Jonathan said. He leaned forward, resting his forehead against hers. I do not know what happens next, Natalie. I do not know if this can work, or if we are both just lonely people grasping at connection. But I want to try. If you do, I want to try, Natalie whispered. I want this to be real. Jonathan's hand slid into her hair, and he pulled her into a kiss that was gentle and desperate all at once. Natalie melted into him, her hands gripping his shoulders, feeling the solid strength of his body despite the wheelchair. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard. Stay with me tonight, Jonathan said. It's not for anything physical. Just stay. Let me hold you. Natalie nodded, and he pulled her onto his lap, wrapping his arms around her. She curled against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. For the first time since arriving at the estate, she felt like she was home. They sat like that for hours, talking softly about their pasts, their fears, their dreams. As dawn began to lighten the sky, Natalie finally understood what was happening. This was not a transaction anymore. This was love, messy and complicated and beautiful, and neither of them was ready to let it go. The final sabotage the next few weeks were the happiest Natalie had ever known. Jonathan opened up more each day, showing her the man behind the walls. They spent evenings reading together, mornings having breakfast on the terrace, afternoons where she would sketch while he worked. He began sharing his dreams for Pierce Technologies, his plans to expand into medical technology that could help people like him. With her encouragement, he started seeing a new physical therapist, a kind older man named Dr. Harrison who focused on maintaining muscle tone and circulation. Natalie also noticed something else. During their quiet moments together, when she would massage his legs as Dr. Harrison had taught her, she sometimes saw Jonathan's foot twitch or his knee flex slightly. When she mentioned it, he dismissed it as muscle spasms, but she wondered if there was more happening beneath the surface. Her father was thriving. The experimental treatment had worked beyond anyone's expectations, and he was now in rehabilitation, learning to regain his full mobility. Every time Natalie visited him, he asked about Jonathan, seeing the happiness in his daughter's eyes, and understanding that this marriage had become something neither of them had expected, but happiness never lasts unchallenged. Rachel had been silent since her dismissal, but Natalie should have known that silence was dangerous. The attack came on a Thursday morning when Barbara appeared at the estate unannounced, her expression grave. "We need to talk," Barbara said, brushing past Natalie into the foyer. "Where's Jonathan?" "In his study," Natalie said warily. "What is this about?" Barbara's smile was sharp. "You will find out soon enough." In the study, Barbara placed a folder on Jonathan's desk. "I thought you should know what your wife has been up to," she said. "Rachel came to me with some disturbing information." Jonathan's eyes narrowed. "Adada. Whatever Rachel told you is likely a lie designed to hurt Natalie. Adada. Is it?" Barbara opened the folder, revealing printouts of financial records. These show regular withdrawals from a secret account. $20,000 a month, transferred to an offshore account in Natalie's name. It started the day after you married. Natalie's blood ran cold. "That is impossible. I do not have any offshore accounts." "Then how do you explain these transfers?" Barbara demanded. "It looks like you have been embezzling from Jonathan's company." Jonathan studied the documents, his expression unreadable. Natalie felt panic rising. This was exactly what Rachel had threatened to make them regret trusting each other. "These are fake," Natalie said desperately. "Jonathan, you have to believe me. I would never steal from you. I love you." The words hung in the air, her first time saying them aloud. Jonathan looked up at her, and for a terrible moment she could not read his expression. Then his face softened. "I know they are fake," he said calmly. "I had my security team monitoring Rachel after she left. We knew she would try something. She created these documents with Barbara's help, hoping to destroy Natalie's reputation in our marriage." Barbara's face paled. "That is absurd. Why would I help Rachel?" "Because I stopped giving you money," Jonathan said coldly. "You came to me 6 months ago asking for a loan to cover your gambling debts. I refused. You've been looking for leverage ever since. Rachel offered you a cut of my inheritance if you could break up my marriage and make me look incompetent to run the company." "You cannot prove any of that," Barbara said, but her voice wavered. "Actually, I can." Jonathan pressed a button on his desk, and his lawyer stepped into the room, followed by 2 security guards. "I have recordings of your phone conversations with Rachel. I have documentation of your debts and your attempted fraud. You have 2 choices, Barbara. Leave quietly and never contact this family again, or I press charges and you go to prison." Barbara looked between them, her composure crumbling. "You have always been ungrateful," she hissed at Natalie. "I gave you a way out of poverty, and this is how you repay me." "You sold me like property," Natalie said, finding her voice. "But you know what? I am grateful. Because it brought me to Jonathan. I would make the same choice again." Barbara grabbed her purse and stormed out, the security guards following to ensure she left the property. The lawyer handed Jonathan another folder. "The restraining orders are ready for your signature," he said. "Both Rachel and Barbara are now legally prohibited from contacting you or Natalie." After the lawyer left, Natalie sank into a chair, shaking. "I cannot believe they went that far." Jonathan wheeled over to her, taking her hands. "I am sorry you had to go through that, but you should know something. When you said you loved me, did you mean it?" Natalie looked into his storm gray eyes and saw her whole future there. "Yes, I love you, Jonathan. This stopped being an arrangement for me weeks ago." "Good," he said, a smile breaking across his face. "Because I love you too, and I have something to tell you." The truth revealed. Jonathan took a deep breath, his hands tightening on hers. The accident did damage my spinal cord, but not as severely as the doctors initially thought. For the past year, I have been regaining sensation in my legs. Small movements at first, then more. Dr. Harrison has been helping me work toward walking again. Natalie's eyes widened. You mean you can walk? Not yet, not fully, but I am close. I have been able to stand with support for a few weeks now. I was going to surprise you when I could do it on my own, but after today, after nearly losing you, I realize I do not want any more secrets between us. Why did you hide it? Natalie asked, hurt flickering across her face. Fear, Jonathan admitted. When I was first injured, people treated me differently. They saw the wheelchair first, and the man second. I needed to know who would stand by me at my lowest, who would love me as I am, rather than who I might become. And you did, Natalie. You saw me, truly saw me, even when I was at my worst. Tears streamed down Natalie's face. I would have loved you either way. Walking or not walking, it does not change who you are to me. I know that now, Jonathan said, and I want you to be part of this next step. Literally, will you help me try to walk? Natalie nodded, wiping her tears. Jonathan called for Dr. Harrison, who arrived quickly with a walker. Together, they helped Jonathan transfer from his wheelchair to standing position, with the walker supporting his weight. His legs shook with the effort, muscles still rebuilding their strength. I cannot hold it for long yet, Jonathan said through gritted teeth. But every day I get stronger. You're amazing, Natalie breathed, standing close in case he needed support. How far can you go? Let's find out together, Jonathan said. Step by trembling step, he moved forward with the walker. Natalie walked beside him, her hand hovering near his elbow, ready to help if needed. They made it across the study to the window, where Jonathan paused, breathing hard but smiling. This is the farthest I have gone, he said, and it is because you are here. You make me believe I can do impossible things. Love's true power, that evening. Natalie insisted on helping Jonathan with his physical therapy exercises. Dr. Harrison had left detailed instructions, and she was determined to support him every step of this journey. As she worked on stretching his leg muscles, she noticed his reactions were stronger than before, his muscles responding with increasing coordination. The doctors said the mind-body connection is crucial for recovery, she said softly, her hands moving in gentle circles on his calf. Maybe part of what held you back was not believing you could heal. Maybe, Jonathan agreed. Or maybe I needed the right reason to heal. Someone worth fighting for. He reached down, cupping her face with one hand. She looked up at him from where she knelt beside his chair, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. Come here, he said softly. Natalie rose, and he pulled her onto his lap, his arms wrapping around her. I have been half alive for 2 years, he whispered against her hair. Going through motions, running a company, existing, but not living. You brought me back to life, Natalie. You reminded me what it means to hope, to dream, to love. You did the same for me, she said, tilting her face up to his. I was just surviving before I met you. Working to save my father, but forgetting to save myself. You showed me that I deserve happiness too. Jonathan's hand slid into her hair, and he kissed her with a passion that left them both breathless. Unlike their first kiss, this one held no hesitation, no fear. It was a promise of forever, a declaration of love that transcended their circumstances. As they kissed, something extraordinary happened. Natalie felt Jonathan's legs shift beneath her, his thighs tensing with deliberate strength. She pulled back, looking down in wonder. Did you just move your legs? Jonathan's eyes were wide with amazement. I did not consciously try to, but yes. They responded on their own. He flexed his right leg, then his left. Movements that were small, but definite. I've never had this much control before. It is your emotions, Natalie said, excitement building. The connection between us is unlocking something. Love is healing you, Jonathan. Science would say that is impossible, he said, but his voice was full of wonder. Then maybe some things are beyond science, Natalie replied. Maybe the power of human connection, of love, can do things we cannot explain. Standing together over the next few days, Jonathan's progress accelerated dramatically. With Natalie by his side, encouraging him, believing in him, he grew stronger. Dr. Harrison was astounded by the rapid improvement, calling it unprecedented in his 30 years of practice. A week after Barbara and Rachel's final attempt to destroy them, Jonathan asked Natalie to meet him in the garden at sunset. When she arrived, she found the grounds transformed with thousands of fairy lights. Rose petals scattered along the paths, soft music playing from hidden speakers. Jonathan sat in his wheelchair at the center of it all, wearing a suit that made him look devastatingly handsome. His eyes found hers, and the love shining there took her breath away. "What is all this?" she asked, walking toward him. "This is me doing something I should have done weeks ago," Jonathan said. He took her hand, and then, slowly, deliberately, he began to stand. His legs shook with effort, but he rose from the wheelchair without assistance. Standing on his own for the first time in 2 years, Natalie gasped, tears instantly filling her eyes. "Jonathan, you are standing." "I am standing," he confirmed, his voice thick with emotion. "Because of you, Natalie Brooks Pierce. You gave me a reason to fight, to believe, to hope. You took a broken man and showed him he was never broken at all, just lost. And you helped me find my way back." He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. "We got married as strangers in a business arrangement, but I want to marry you again properly this time. As a man who loves you more than life itself. Will you marry me, Natalie? Will you choose me not because you have to, but because you want to?" Natalie was crying openly now, nodding frantically. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." Jonathan opened the box, revealing a stunning ring with a diamond that caught the sunset light. He slipped it onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms. Standing together, they shared a kiss that felt like the beginning of everything. "I love you," Jonathan whispered against her lips. "My savior, my heart, my home." "I love you too," Natalie said. "My miracle, my partner, my forever." As the last rays of sunlight painted the sky in gold and pink, Jonathan took his first steps with Natalie by his side. They walked together through the garden, his arm around her shoulders, her arm around his waist, supporting each other as they had from the beginning. A new beginning, 3 months later. Natalie stood in the same garden, now transformed for their second wedding. Her father, fully recovered and healthy, walked her down the aisle with tears of joy streaming down his face. Jonathan stood at the altar on his own 2 feet, his smile brighter than the summer sun. This time, there were no contracts, no arrangements, no bargains. Only 2 people who had found each other in the darkness and chosen to walk toward the light. Together, as they exchanged vows they had written themselves, promising love, partnership, and endless support. Natalie thought about the journey that had brought them here. She had been forced to marry a broken man, or so she had believed. But Jonathan was never broken. He was healing, growing, fighting his way back to wholeness. And she had been privileged to be part of that journey. The kiss they shared as husband and wife for the second time was met with thunderous applause. But all Natalie heard was the beating of Jonathan's heart against hers, the whispered "I love you" against her lips, the promise of a future built on love rather than necessity. That evening, as they danced at their reception, Jonathan holding her close and moving with increasing confidence on his strengthened legs, he leaned down to whisper in her ear, "Thank you for seeing past the wheelchair to the man inside. Thank you for believing in me when I had stopped believing in myself." "Thank you for choosing me," Natalie replied. "For saving my father and showing me what real love looks like. For being brave enough to let me in." They swayed together under the stars. 2 souls who had been brought together by desperation, but had chosen to stay together for love. And as the night deepened and the music played on, everyone who watched them could see the truth that some might call impossible, but that Natalie and Jonathan knew to be real. Love had healed him. Not just physically, though his ability to walk again was remarkable, but emotionally, spiritually. Love had taken a man who had closed himself off from the world and opened him up to joy again. And that was the greatest miracle of all. Years later, when people asked about their love story, Jonathan would smile and say, I was lost until she found me, Natalie would add. We saved each other. They would both know it was the truest thing either of them had ever said.